Good evening or good morning, folks. It is 10:40 on the 22nd, my time, so about 3:40 in the morning GMT, and we are currently waiting for Forex markets to wake up after last week. We could see some pretty explosive movement if there are any catalysts this week that finally decide to drive price. So I have a select number of pairs this week that I'm looking at. I won't be looking at many of the more exotic pairs that I usually cover in my analysis, simply because they can go wild when most of the majors aren't moving, or I should say the major currencies that factor into those pairs aren't going anywhere. They can just end up creating dojis with huge wicks. So let's start with the pound CAD. I got a fib here from last week's low to high. So looking for a long. You can see that we've struggled to make new highs and maintain the uptrend. However, I am interested to long either from the 4-hour 55 down to basically the 4-hour Dynafibs and WS1, which is right at 190.50. All right, let's take a look at pound odd. This fib is actually from the daily. It kind of looks like it's from the 4-hour chart, but it is basically this little leg up right here, and you can see we're currently sitting in this little zone where price hasn't decided which way it wants to go, and you can see that that was a resistance area back here. So biased here is still on the long side. If we do start to break below this area, especially if we break, well, I'll look for a spike down to WS1, the super convergence zone. You can see it's been previous support and resistance. It's basically the bottom of this little area here. All right, that's a lot of arrows. So potentially quite a few options here, but again, pretty much all of them require a good bit of caution. We could just break up back above the 4-hour 55. Preferably, if we just start moving down for the week, we don't move up first, we get a bounce off of WS1 in the super convergence zone. If we're going to have a larger pullback, then I'll look for a long off of the daily 55. All right, pound USD. We have broken above the daily 55. However, the fib from the large weekly move, you can see that we've just touched, this is 23.6, and we touched it and moved away. Now, of course, we did hit basically the 55s again and bounced off of them. So we could be stuck between there. If we make another run down at the beginning of the week, we could potentially have a long off of the daily 55 again for a short trade, maybe up to 155, or we could just bounce off the 23.6 fib again. However, I would not be surprised if we break below the daily 55 to resume the downtrend, especially if we move up first and then make a break below the 55. Euro AUD I haven't traded in a while, but potentially we have pretty decent wedge forming, and if we push back up into the 4-hour 55, and we've got the dailies here as well, and we really fail to make much of a move higher there, we could potentially short and have enough room to get to break even by the bottom of the wedge and look for a breakout there. The more conservative approach, of course, is to wait for a break of 144 and then a pullback to short for resumption of the downtrend on this pair. Euro JPY last week, I was interested to short from 135. That didn't really work out. We're currently kind of hanging out between 135 and not quite making it up to the 4-hour 200. So I'm definitely interested if we get a move up to short from the 4-hour 200, and if we get a break back below 135, I'm interested to short from there, but be careful with our midterm here, fib here at 134.37. All right, on JPY, we've been inching our way closer to pretty key area. I'm quite interested to take a short anywhere between the 4-hour 200 and the daily 55, which you can see encompasses 94, which is a pretty strong support and resistance area. So look for price to move up into that area, followed by a good signal to short. All USD is in pretty much the same boat. However, it could provide us a little bit better of a trade if we just move down from where we are now. You can see that that's a bit of a resistance area. So if we close back below the weekly pivot and the 4-hour 200, we can look for a pullback and a short there. Not a whole lot of room for WS1, so be careful there. Preferably we get a pullback to the 4-hour 200. I will look to take the second rejection off of the 4-hour 200. We could get a bounce off of there and then break through it, as we may see price try to march up to the daily 55, which is a little bit closer to .80, which is definitely a key area for this pair. All right, USD CAD, another pair that's kind of creating a wedge here. We got 124 on the bottom. The bottom's a little bit messy there, but 124 seems to be the area that we're failing to get below at this point, and we've got a lot of traffic in that area. So we got the 4-hour 55 and the weekly pivot, which would be the first area to look for a bounce off of, especially if we move up to WR1 and then come back down, and look for the subsequent move to then break the wedge there. Otherwise, I'd like to see a spike down to 124 and then a good signal to long. And last but not least, USD JPY. I mentioned last week I was looking for a spike down to 118.39 or even all the way down to 118. I did take a trade from there, and I closed it out for a relatively small gain before FOMC because I wasn't far enough from break even to really hold through there, and we didn't end up moving all that much anyway. So the story there is pretty much the same. Be looking for either a move up towards 119.50, and then if we do get a pullback, look for another bounce off of 119. That of course is a little bit more risky. I don't know if we will come all the way back down to the 4-hour 200 this week or not. If we do, I would definitely look to trade from that area. All right, that's going to be it for me this week. Again, a lot fewer pairs than I normally cover, but again, the markets were so sideways last week, especially on the majors. If we do see the market wake up this week, I think we can get some pretty good trades off of the pairs that I did cover, and I think that the more exotic pairs and some of the crosses, while they may move a lot, may not provide the best trading opportunities. They will probably be rather difficult until perhaps next week or maybe later in this week, when we've started to pick directions on the majors. All right, I will try to catch you guys in the forums.